Hi there, today I'm going to be showing how to install PVC cladding on a bathroom ceiling. So this is my bathroom ceiling at the moment and a lot of peeling's been happening, and I thought let me try and install this just to stop this happening in the future. So it just gives a cleaner surface which you can just wipe down. So what I've done so far, I've cleaned up the ceiling, anything loose I've peeled off, and what I've done next is prime the surface with PVA glue. So I've gone for a mixture of 3 parts water and 1 part PVA glue, mixed it together and just painted it on to prime it. So the next thing I need to do is take off, if I can show, the light switch there and the actual light fixture there. Now you can see that I've got a hole around that area, and that's where the rain shower part is. I've already removed that. Details on the cladding I've used I've included in the description of the video if anyone's interested in getting the same one. So let me show you the cladding next. Okay, so this is the cladding I've purchased, and just to show, glossy on one side, a matte finish on the other. It's 5mm thick and 25 centimeters wide here, and the length is 2.6 meters. Comes covered, the glossy area, in some plastic just to protect it from scratching up. Just to give you a close-up of it, so you'll probably need a cut at the end. It does look a little bit messy, but I've seen cladding like this before and I think that's sort of normal, so you just need to give it a nice cut on there and it should be fine. Okay, so I've removed the light switch and the actual light, and I've just covered the cables. Obviously the power's isolated at the moment, so I've turned it off at the consumer unit, and I've measured up. So the actual length back to forth is, I've just written it on the ceiling, 207 centimeters, and I've written some dimensions there, so I'm going to have to cut a hole. So initially what we'll do, we'll cut the entire length back to front just to there, and then we'll try and see if it actually fits in the area, and then we'll work on actually drilling the holes for these items, so for that one and for that one there. Okay, so before I cut the board, just to highlight a couple of things. So I'm going to cut obviously an initial edge there because I can see some of the end, and it will hopefully give a tidier finish. Now this is the end for slotting in, so the back of it, we're going to have to cut that off as well. So let me see how I can cut that, but initially we'll just cut straight down and then we'll measure and then cut the same on the other side and then remove that obviously. Nice clean cut on that. Okay, so next let's cut off the end here. Okay, so I've marked the area that needs to be cut, so let me cut it. Okay, so I've sliced the end off as I've shown before. Slight mishap, only because the camera's in the way, it gets quite tricky cutting, but it's not too in, so it's not too bad. So I should be able to put a silicone bead all the way around, which I'm going to do anyway, and it should cover that one up. But obviously be careful as you're slicing the end off with a knife. Okay, so I've marked the location where the hole should go for the actual light switch cable. So quite straightforward. Obviously I've measured inwards and towards the side, and that's the location. So let me drill that next. Okay, just to show, first piece of cladding is in, and sizing wise end to end it's quite good, but just to note, the edging here where the tiling's done doesn't look straight. So let me work out a technique to mark that and cut that so it's a little bit more flush with the ends. So what I'm doing is taking my pencil and marking some of the edge that needs to be sliced. So if I slice a little bit off there, it will push it further inwards. So just a small area to do, but hopefully that will reduce the gap we've got at the end. Okay, so next let's slice off that area. So I've got a piece of wood and my Stanley knife, and I'll just cut with that. Okay, so I've sliced a little bit off and the finish is much closer. So it should be enough just to put a silicone bead now. Don't have to go anything more than that. Okay, so I've taken the board off, I've given it a quick wipe. Next we want to put some silicone on there. And this is low modulus silicone, and that should help it stick to the ceiling. Obviously I've primed it as well. So the ceiling is fairly level, so we can just get away with just putting a bead like so. If it wasn't level, you can just put blobs on there, if that makes sense. Okay, I'll come around here as well, put a bit more on the edge. Put some more along here as well. Just a reasonable amount. Light switches here. Let's put some around that area. As this is the first one, I'm going to put obviously as much as I can to ensure it sticks well. Okay, so the first piece is in and it's stuck quite well to the ceiling, as you can see. I've just propped it up on one end and the other end is holding well. So let me carry on and do the next one. Hopefully that should be easier as the trim is straight. Okay, so I've screwed in some of the board just to show, and I've tried to go as flush as possible so the next board can slot in quite easily. Not a straightforward thing to do, obviously you've got to put a lot of force into it. I've used these screws, small silver screws. You could use plasterboard ones, the only reason I didn't put them in case they were too wide. So these smaller ones seems to have done the trick, so I've just put a couple in. I did try for the other end, but I was struggling to push it in. So it's fine, it's stuck down and we've got 2 screws, so it should be more than enough. So we're ready for the next one. So let me work on that in the background. Okay, next just to show how it clips in. So I've cut the next board, holes there for the rain shower part, and just to show, the longer bit is what we're adding on to, and this is the rear end. Just to show, that's how it clips into place. So you can just see a subtle line just there, but it does lock into position quite well. And I've tried it out where the areas where I've got the screw, and it does slot in quite well. So got the second board here, got the silicone on there, and I'm just about to slot it in. So let's come in at a tight angle just from this side. Okay, there you go, stuck on now. So let me use the props to support it a little bit longer while it sticks, and then I'll put some screws in. The third strip is in now, and that was slightly easier, no extra holes to make, just making sure the sides are trimmed, just about to slip into the area. So on to the next one where the light cable is just there. So I've just got to accommodate that. Okay, so this is the advantage of using a saw with this. So the wall's slightly off with the tiling, so I can mark the area I need to cut off at either side and just slice it with the actual miter saw. Okay, so I've put some silicone on another board, and just to give you an idea how much it's using, quite a lot actually. I'm not skimping on it, so probably around a third to a half of one of these tubes, just to show. It's gone through quite a lot already, so as you can see on the third one of them was already slightly empty anyway, been using it for something else. So that's the coverage so far. Nearly there now, a few more to do. So let me carry on. Okay, so this is where we're at now. So this board's been really tricky to put in at the corner. So got a bit of a gap here, and that's actually the end of the board. So one of the things to be aware of when you do it, make sure you don't end up with too small a gap. I guess I could fill it with silicone. Up here isn't too bad. But again, it's positioning things. I had to pull the fan off because the fan was getting in the way. Quite a few little cuts I had to do just to get it into position. And now the final piece is left, just to show there. But doesn't look too bad actually. Just to show, very shiny and very clean looking. So I've measured up the last one. So let me cut that up and position it in. Okay, so I'm down to the smallest piece now that goes on the end. I've cut it to length, as you can see, and I've marked the depth on there. So I'm using a Stanley knife and I'm just gently cutting into it freehand. So it's a bit difficult to do on camera, so I thought let me just quickly describe what I'm doing, and then I'll slice it a bit more just to get it all the way through. But it seems to be working fine using the actual Stanley knife. Okay, so I've sliced the top, as you can see, and it's bendable as well now. So what I can do is spin it round, and I've bent it sufficiently enough just to give me an indication where to cut now. So simple as that. So let me continue the rest of that off camera. Okay, so there you go. A whole lot's on now, end to end, and the last bit was a little bit tricky, but it will need a bit of tidying up around the edges. With the silicones, can just block the small bit of the gap that's left. So let me put the fixtures back again, so the lights, etc., the light switch, and then I can silicone around the area. Okay, so we have all the fixtures back in place, so the light switch, the actual rain shower, the light, and the fan. So next we want to actually fill in the gap we have between the cladding and the tiles. So I've got this silicone tool, and it should help do a clean edge around it. So if I come up the ladder and we have a look at the gap there. So this one's around 8 mil. So that seems to give sufficient clearance on there. So pretty straightforward with these tools. I've done a video how to do it. What you do, you run your silicone bead all the way along, spray some water over it, some soapy water, and then use the tool to drag along and just clear any excess silicone, and that leaves a nice, you could say, triangular bead all the way along. I've got my bottle full of soapy water, so small amount of fairy liquid and some water mixed together, and there's my silicone gun with silicone in there. I'm going to try and do this. So quite tricky doing this one-handed, obviously with the camera in another hand. See what I can do though. So just force it into the gap. You may have to go back and do a little bit of a top up for the other bits. So let me carry on doing that and top it up where necessary, and then I'll show the silicone tool in action. Okay, so we've got a bead of silicone on there now, and I've filled in as much as I can. So next, we want to get our soapy water and just spray. Okay, simple as that. Next, we want to take the actual tool and we'll wet that as well. And it should be as simple as just okay, so I flipped over to the 6 only because I noticed there was a bit less in some areas. Just to show it's not too bad how it's turned out. Just got the last bit to do now, so let me do that off camera just a little bit easier without holding the camera. There we have the bead done now. It's not too bad actually, nice and tidy. So let me do the others off camera, just a little bit easier obviously doing it without holding the camera at the same time. Okay, so I've come around here as well now with the silicone, and now we're in the area where there's a slightly bigger gap. Now if I get the tool, there's a different one here, a different size, and I'm going to go for a thicker bead here, a 12mm bead. And just to show, it fits quite nicely into the area. So let me do that one next. So a lot of silicone in this, obviously you've got to pack that out, and then obviously enough to run the tool along. There you go. So a really thick bead going along there. So next we just spray it. And I'll use the tool to straighten it out. So there you go. Covered it quite nicely. We've come to the corner, we're going to do a thinner bead here. So we're going to do the 6mm, and then we'll do 6mm all the way along. It's all fully completed. Just show you the finish. It's not too bad. And I actually went for an 8 afterwards. It's an 8mm corner. And if I come in here, I went for the 12mm on there. Obviously the gap was bigger. Now I had to move the fan, so I just pulled it out. So not too bad. Tool is essential really to do this, just to get a good finish. And if I come in close, I had to move the light switch as well temporarily. So I'll just let it dry. And that's it, yeah. Not too bad. It was a bit of a hassle fitting it, I have to admit. Only because of the cuts. You know, tiles may be slightly off, the wall might be slightly off as well, and just to accommodate all this. But really pleased with the actual finish, the final finish on this. Hopefully no more issues in here. If there's no paint, there's nothing to peel, so it should be just a straight wipe down job on the top. So a couple of things to note. It's nice to have a large miter saw to actually cut the plastic, so you're not messing around cutting it with a saw. The other one is the props. So I had those blue props just to hold up, so useful to have that. So just to push it into position so you're not standing there holding it for a few minutes or seconds. And essentially you screw it in as well, so a combination of glue and screws. So there you go. Hope it's helped anyone thinking of doing this. I tried to show as much as I could, but obviously difficult if you're in the middle of doing it and trying to film at the same time. So there you go. Details are in the description below for some of the items I used. Thanks for viewing, and don't forget to like and subscribe.